like you're out of all the kids that I trained, you're the one who kind of followed suit and got into coaching, not just like dabbled in here and there, but like actually got into coaching and, you got a chance to kind of see and participate and kind of do the same thing that was done with you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an interesting way for you to kind of see from both sides of the fence the mending of training, the mending of mental toughness, mental performance, and all that kind of good stuff. So I think it's actually fitting that you're the first one. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we have one of my former athletes who I trained for years. I think we trained total of probably 8 years or so.
Yeah.
Um, High school, TC Williams, Club Freedom.
Yeah. In Maryland.
Yep. Won the conference championship your senior year in high school.
Yeah.
Team
Wow.
captain 2 out of 4 years in high school.
Yeah.
4-time all-conference player. And 2017 player of the year.
That's a long time ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sophie Johnson. What's up, Sophie?
Hello. How are you?
How are you doing today?
I'm good. Brought back a lot of memories there. Throwing
Well, a
it
lot of
back.
good memories, hopefully.
Yeah, lots of good
Well,
memories.
since we're talking about memories, let's start out a little bit let's do a little backflash. Take us back to the beginning. When did you know that field hockey was your sport? Because I know you, as an athlete, you played multiple sports. You played tennis. I don't remember what other sports you played, but I know you played more than just tennis and field hockey. But when did you know that field hockey was that sport for you?
Oh man. Um, I mean, I didn't start playing field hockey until the end of 5th grade, and I feel like a lot of people around me started playing way earlier than that. I kinda got thrown into a camp when we were visiting my dad's side of the family in England, and my parents realized vacation is more fun without kids, so my brother and I were put in a camp with my cousins, and I was like, "What is this sport? Why can I only use one side of the stick? That's stupid." Um, Realized it was kinda fun, had some really cool coaches from all over the world at that camp. Told my dad I liked it. He threw me in a summer league, so that was going into 6th grade, and kinda just casually played in a summer league, that's about it. And then I was lucky enough in middle school, we got to play for JV or freshman teams as an 8th grader. So I tried out. They were super unhappy that I was still playing a bunch of different sports and had a conflict with one of the tryouts. So I got put on freshman and I was pissed. And so JV, only like 2 8th graders made JV and I was mad that I wasn't one of them. So honestly, probably around 8th grade, I realized I wanted to be good. I didn't know if it was gonna be my sport, but I was like, "I wanna take this seriously because I wanna show them that they made a mistake," which probably gives you a little bit of an insight to what I'm like. Um, and then 8th grade was fun, just, like, had a blast with my friends. I actually really ended up being happy I was on that team because I had some pretty influential coaches randomly. They were awesome. And then at the end of my 8th grade year, like, season, the varsity coach was like, "You better play during the off season." And I was like, "Okay, who are you?" Like, why is this man talking to me about
It's
my free
funny.
time?" And then I was like, "You know what? Maybe I'll give it a shot." And I joined a club team, and I just started to like it more and more than compared to soccer, which was really where my focus was outside of field hockey for a long time, like my whole life. And I was a soccer goalie, so kind of a rogue switch up. I think I just liked not having to stand in the goal anymore and be, like, bored out of my mind because I was on a pretty good team, so it didn't need me very often.
Right.
And, yeah, then I came back freshman year, made varsity, and was like, "Whoa, alright, don't wanna be a disappointment." So, Yeah, I would say about my freshman year of high school, I was like, "Okay, this is pretty cool. I'm having more fun than I am with soccer." And then sophomore year was when I stopped playing soccer, and field hockey took number 1.
So my next question was going to be, when did you realize that this was a sport that you really wanted to pursue? If the non-knowing Sophie people are listening to it, they would probably say your sophomore year. But me knowing you and the way you're wired and how competitive you are, I would be more inclined to say it was that eighth grade year when you were told to play freshman as opposed to getting on JV.
Oh, yeah. I was something switched. I think I've always been someone who's kind of motivated by a chip on my shoulder, like, I not to sound crazy, but I dare you to doubt me is kind of been my mentality. I'm not tall, I'm not super crazy naturally athletic, but I'm not gonna quit. And if I've decided I wanna do something, it's getting done. And so, I don't even think I had decided I wanted to be, like, good at field hockey, but I was just mad that 2 of my friends that I thought I could do a little better at field hockey made it, and I was like, "Well, I felt unsettled and unfulfilled." Like, I was mad because if you're gonna do this is definitely from my parents, but if you're gonna do something, do it right, and why not do it at the best possible level? So I was pissed that there was another level that I couldn't do, and I also, in complete transparency, we had to wear those ugly, like, quilts on the freshman team, and the JV team got, like, the cute Under Armour skirts, so that also pissed me off.
Fashion, of
But
course.
yeah, it honestly looked like we were from the 1950s, but, um, thankfully, I ended up stealing those and repurposing them in college for Halloween costumes, but I think it was definitely in 8th grade where the first time someone told me no, and I was like, "Mm-mm, not around here. We're not doing that.
That's
We're
funny.
not saying no."
So we'll get to this later. When we talk about your experience with training with me. But I used to always, so everybody knows through my history of training field hockey players that I have a hierarchy ranking of who my favorites are. Um, and I have reasons for that, right? Everybody knows that Sammy Stone's my favorite, but I spent more hours, more time with Sammy than I did with anybody else, right? So we
Mhm.
just had a different kind of relationship in regards to athlete coach type of thing. And she kind of morphed into like a little sister or a little niece to
Yeah.
me. But you have always in my top five. And just like you said, like no disrespect or anything, no shade, but I used to tell people all the time, you were not the fastest, you was not
Yeah,
the quickest, you were
actually
not the most
close.
athletic, right? But you had something in you that you can't teach. And that was like a competitive drive. And that competitive drive um allowed you to do things, perform and achieve things that most people can't if they don't have all the great markers of being fast, being quick, being athletic, and we can go down that checklist of things. So to your point, I think your competitive nature and your competitive spirit kind of was like, your superpower. And we're gonna go a little bit deeper into my beliefs of everybody has a superpower, but I just kind of wanted to tap on that since you kind of brought that up a little bit. Um, so let's fast forward a little bit. Your junior year, your senior year. Tell us a little bit about the recruiting process for you in regards to getting recruited, what that was like. Um, how was it mentally? What was kind of going through your head at that time, if you can remember those things.
Yeah. Jeez. The recruiting process was awful. Um, I switched clubs. I switched over to Freedom in my sophomore year. Um, my parents have never been a big fan of like bouncing around clubs. They think that's like a major red flag, and I honestly agree with them. But it was kind of at a point where the club I was at before was kind of starting to unravel a bit, and I knew like, okay, I do want to take this to the next level, so I want to be around really good coaches and really good players. And I was scared shit. Oh, scared. I was terrified.
No, you good. You good.
Okay, I was terrified to make the jump, but I don't even know how I found freedom. But I tried out, and the girls there, I still credit them to this day, like, they're probably why I am where I am. They're all very like-minded, but they are so welcoming and they push you so hard. But they're there to pick up the pieces on the days that you don't get there. And I was a little bit late to the game. Like these most of my teammates had been freedom since they could like tie their own shoes. And so they've been knowing their coaches and knowing recruiting. And so I from the get-go, I think I sat down with Sarah Dawson maybe my sophomore spring and she was like, "Okay, like we're a little bit like behind per se, but like I have faith." And sh I mean, she is where I am. I'm ended up going to UMass because of her. But she told me, she was like, "Look, sometimes you are the best player on the field and an invaluable resource. And sometimes I'm like, Sophie, what are you doing? So let's just like really focus on your consistency. And that's going to be what's going to take you to the next level." And I kind of took that mentality across like all aspects of my like recruiting journey, like consistency in terms of, yes, we want my quality of play to be consistent, but we want showing up to practice with the right mentality. You want showing up to training. You want like everything to be consistent, like mental game, physical game, tactical game, everything. Because I wanted to be a player that people could rely on. And then went to a bunch of different schools. I had like pretty good luck when I was at like not showcase, whatever the like clinics are where you go. And a lot of times I would just try to go as hard as I could at those things. And then I had a lot of luck of like meeting with coaches afterwards. And one thing for me that was tough was I really cared about the academics as well. Um, Back at that point, I thought I still wanted to be a doctor. I don't know what I was thinking. But I knew school was important to me and I wasn't going to sacrifice school for field hockey. So it took some patience to find a school that was going to work for me. And Barb Weinberg, who's now at UMass, she left Wake Forest in my junior year and she needed people. And she called Sarah Dawson. It's like, I need people. And I feel like I'm behind the mark because I just took over this program and I was a junior. And Sarah was like, "You want this kid." And I went and visited and I was like, "I've never heard of UMass, being from Virginia." And I just immediately knew, I know, that it was the kind of place that I was supposed to be. Like, I didn't have that feeling when I was on campus at some of the other places I visited. And everyone I met with kind of had that same mentality of like, yeah, we're not the Big Ten, we're not the ACC, we're not the flashiest. Like, thankfully, they had really good resources, because they had a good hockey team, which brought in a lot of money, but it was kind of that chip on your shoulder, like, a little more blue collar, like, we have to really put in the work to earn our spot at the table, um, and that just felt like the right vibe, and I committed in the spring of my junior year, so again, kinda late, but I was so happy that I
Well,
didn't
nowadays is not
earlier.
late. Like
Yeah, I
back
know, I can't
then,
remember, yeah, I
yeah,
can't
back
remember
then when
what.
you're recruited, you could commit as early as a freshman.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's touch on two things that you said, and I just want you to just really, really quick hit on them. The first thing is you talked about changing clubs, and that being a red flag. But in your situation, you felt like it was perfect and what you needed at that time. Here's why I want you to tap on that for a quick second, because right now in the environment, you probably see that where you are as well. But here, some of the major clubs that were around that created D1 athletes aren't around anymore. So now you have clubs in this Northern Virginia DMV area that's not as strong as it used to be. And you have girls being recruited from some of the weaker schools, but the fear is when they get to college, they're going to have a hard time transitioning because they're not getting the same level of competitiveness. What are your thoughts on, not changing clubs because you feel like a red flag, or not changing clubs because you feel like you don't want to leave your friends?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a super personal decision-making process, but I think the red flag in changing clubs is if you're kind of bouncing around some of those top tier clubs and just that sometimes can come off as not being the most coachable and, like, maybe looking inwards, maybe you're the problem and not the club, but at the end of the day, you need to prioritize your experience and your preparation for the next level if that's what you're seeking to do. And just always, I would recommend before you switch clubs, kind of have a bit of reflection of why am I doing this? Am I doing this to push myself and be playing at a higher level? That's a no brainer. You'd make that switch. Or am I unhappy because this coach annoys me or I don't get as much playing time as I think I deserve? That's when I get a little frustrated and like kind of bummed out that I see because I firmly believe that if you're coachable and you're working hard enough, you need to get on the field. And as Kenny says, don't give them a reason to take you off. So just really look inwards and think like, why am I making this decision? And is it the right one? And your friends will be your friends, even if you don't see them 3 times a week at practice. And some of the friendships that I have from my first ever club team, I still maintain. And then also from my second one at Freedom. And like the right club will welcome new people because they want to be good and they want to have a fun time.
And then the second thing is I want you to tap on the conversation and the idea about being consistent in everything you do, and what's the importance of that you found?
I mean, I still carry it with myself, like in my life now. I'm not a competitive athlete anymore, I guess, kind of. I run marathons, so like that's kind of competitive, but it really is a competitive with yourself thing. But
Right.
I took it through law school. I took it through college playing sports. I took it through high school academics. If you show up every single day and you're giving 100% of what you have that day, and sometimes what you have to give that day is like 20% of your capacity. But if you're giving 100% of that 20%, you're going to make strides. And also, consistency is what makes things feel a little bit more attainable because you just get used to being in that routine. Like I had so many friends who some were athletes, some weren't, who over the summers were like, "Why are you driving an hour and 15 minutes to go like lift weights or do strength or speed?" I'm like, it's the summer, that's what I do. Like the season's in the fall. It just becomes second nature. Doesn't make it any easier once like to put in the work, but showing up can be the hardest part. And showing up with that mindset ready to go can be really hard. And once you create the habit doing that, I think you're hard to stop. So,
Yeah, and Coach Lawson, the women's coach for Duke basketball, she has a saying that things don't get easier; you just learn how to do hard better,
yeah,
and that
100%.
that comes from the consistency of it all, right? Now you're there, you're at the D1 program, you're at UMass, you get there. Um, what was that like? Did you have a sense of feeling like the little imposter syndrome? Did you experience like, why am I here? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And if so, how did you handle those things?
Yeah, I mean, I had every possible emotion going on. I was far from home, so that was alarming. Um, I had been going to school with the same kids since kindergarten, like stayed in the public school system, and moved up and you start a fall sport, I think is just it's the best because it's beautiful weather, but it's the hardest transition to make. You don't have an off season, so it shows when you show up on day 1 if you're ready and if you put the work in. And I d can confidently say that I would not have had the transition that I had if I hadn't put in the work over the summer, like, mentally more so even than physically. Um, Obviously, I was physically ready, and one thing that you always told me was, like, be the fittest person on the line you're standing on. Like, if you're standing next to your class members, be the fittest freshman. If you're standing with your position group, be the fittest defender, because I was a defender, like and we did the beep test in 2 groups. I was like, "Okay, I just have to be the fittest one out of the 2 groups, like, whichever one I was in." Um, And I did well on the beep test, so that gave me a little bit of a boost of confidence, and then early on, we did a lot of, like, scrimmage play, and I was just willing to play anywhere. Like, I did not care. The only thing I was not gonna do was put on those stinky ass pads and play goalie, but, like, if you wanna just throw me at forward, sure, I'll try to get the ball in the goal. If you wanna keep me on defense, I'll try to keep the ball out of the goal. Like, when we were doing, like, player-led scrimmages, so, like, you'd have a captain, be the coach of each team, and then had to come up with your own lineup, and coaches were just watching and taking it all in, and I think well, I know that um was good for me because they ended up telling me in retrospect. So they were like, we'd look up and you'd be at attacking center mid, and then you'd be at left back, and then you'd be at right forward. Like, we knew we could just put you in situations. And I think like being comfortable with like you're not going to know everything systematically wherever your program is that you're playing at. You're not going to like you are going to learn so much in your 4 years, and it's going to be fast. But just like be comfortable with making mistakes and like learning and taking feedback, um, because you really do learn through doing. So just, like, take the hits as they come and just get back up every time. And, like, sometimes it's gonna be really humbling, um, but, oh well. Like,
That's what you're there for, right?
it's a lot more humbling to not get those opportunities, and I saw how much that can affect people, like, not like, that first year can be hard if you're not seeing the field. And I understand I was extremely lucky. There was luck at play, like, they didn't have a right back. I enjoyed playing right back. So there was an opening, but
Was it really luck?
I don't know. I mean, there were plenty of people who could have taken that spot, and I got
So
the
so
opportunity.
here's why I asked that question, right? I feel like it's luck if you wasn't prepared
Yeah.
and they just picked your name out of a hat and you got on the field because they picked your name out of a hat. That's luck,
Yeah.
right? But if you're the one preparing yourself, you're the one showing up in condition, you're the one showing up in shape, you're the one showing up with a strong mental disposition, and you're willing to play every position on the field, and they saw that, at that point, that's no longer luck. You kind of created that pathway for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's all true. Sometimes I find it hard to acknowledge that. Um, which it I don't know. I think
Well, don't worry about it. I said it for you, so you're good.
okay. And I think if I could give, like, anyone any advice, like, nothing is permanent, so, like, even if you show up and you aren't playing, like, whether it's something as unfortunate as an injury for someone that totally shakes up a lineup, or if someone's just not producing, like, if you get a moment to get on the field or say there's a really hot game and they have to sub faster, you can, don't give them a reason to take you off. Like, even if it's, like, the most mundane role, like if you're playing right trail in practice in defensive penalty corners when the focus is on attacking penalty corners, do that well. And like there's jobs that people don't want to do because they're not the flashiest, but you can't win games without them. So just take every opportunity that you get so seriously, but also like be a pleasant teammate. Um, Like, that goes a long way, like, people wanting to be around you is like, you can notice that as a coach.
Yeah.
Don't be a cancer to a culture on a team, because it's just
Yeah,
insufferable.
I tell all my girls now that I coach, like, when you're on the field, always make the right field hockey play. And sometimes that's giving up the ball and making that extra run. You're not guaranteed to get the ball back, but making that run through is the right field hockey play to make, right? And, a lot of times I tell these kids it's about pressure. Whoever puts pressure on first wins, right? So if you're making a pass up and, you're making that run through, you can put pressure on that defense that they're going to have to decide, are they going to double somebody, or are they going to man up and mark somebody, or not? And that makes the defense have to guess sometimes, which will give you the upper hand. So, it's always being the right player, being a good teammate, and making the right field hockey play when it's there to be made. Cool. So let's transition. So I want to transition to something a little more personal, right? You mentioned a lot of stuff about being mentally tough, being mentally prepared. Um, Tell me a little bit about how you felt the training with me went and how that impacted you, good, bad, or indifferent.
Oh my god. It's kinda funny because I was in the car today with my now roommate, but she did her 5th year at UMass after doing 4 years at Holy Cross, and we were talking about our favorite and, like, least favorite exercises in the gym, and I was like, "I can't stand cleans." Like, I can't do that. Well, I can, but, like, I can't do them well, and they were something that were, like had become such a mental block for me, like, summer after summer after summer. I would come back and just glitch. Like, I looked like a fish out of water. And there were multiple occasions where you sat me down and were like, "Stop letting this exercise beat you." And just like we tried lots of different like approaches, broke it down technique wise, but like it was never like a physical problem. It really was a mental problem. And just being taught that, like, sometimes you need to hit pause and zoom out is something that I think I took into, like, my time when I was at school, and I do think I'm wired in a way that, like, there's very few people that are harder on me than myself. Um, did find someone who was, with you. Yep, you. And I needed that because between that and then my own mindset, like, nothing was gonna be harder than what I did on my own time, and it was also stuff that, like, nobody was watching over the summer. Like, nobody from college they didn't have Strava back then, so I wasn't well, they probably did, but I didn't know about it, so I wasn't, like, uploading my workouts for other people to see, like, it was like, I built a confidence in myself through having my little breakdowns over the summer and across every possible gym that I trained in with you, there were tears shed, and I'm not a crier. Um, but it made coming back to school, like, a breeze, and, like, nothing was more challenging than what I did on my own, and I was like, "Well, I did the hard stuff, like, the season is the reward, and if you don't treat the season like your reward, I don't know what you're doing, like, I don't know why you're there." Um, and just unfortunately, if you put in the work, you're gonna be mild fortunately and unfortunately, I wish more people knew this, but, like, if you put in the work over the summer as a fall athlete, you're gonna be bounds ahead of other people. So, just, like, again, take the mental hits and, like, have someone who has the patience to work through it with you, and, like, there were a few times where, like, I felt as an athlete that I needed positive reinforcement. It honestly kind of annoyed me when someone would tell you you're good at something. I'm like, okay, but like there's so many people that are better. And like I understand the importance of recognizing your wins, but I feel like you did a great job finding that blend between positive reinforcement when I needed it, like when I was freaking out over a clean and being like, no, you can do this. And like I've seen you do it. Versus sometimes I would be, like, slacking and you just, like, would cock your head and look at me, and I'm like, "I'm sorry. I know, I know, I know. I need to do better." Like, you didn't have to say much. Um, but that
The
voice
look.
kinda yeah, mhm. The voice, the look, it all, like, travels with you when you're away at school. So
So first day, first week,
oh my
first
god, I remember it
impressions
all. At school or of you?
with me.
Oh my god. Do you remember where you were working
Hmm.
when I first came in
In
that, like,
Chantilly, that
upstairs
place
place?
upstairs. Hmm.
Yeah, well, first I met with you with my dad,
Yep.
um, and because 'cause I'm very, like, very lucky to have incredibly supportive parents, but they're not gonna just, like, throw money at a problem, not that it was a problem, but, like, they wanted to know what they were investing in, so my dad was like, "I'm sitting down with this man," but you came through word of mouth, and my dad was at a graduation party, and he heard about you for, like, some through some family friend's friend, and we were just chatting back and forth. He was in my kitchen and I was in the living room, and I was like, I'm a little, like, w lost in the gym. Like, I would go to the gym with my dad, but, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and, like, I do think, like, it's gonna be important for me to get stronger. And he was like, "Yeah, probably." And he asked if I wanted to consider, like, personal training stuff, and I was shocked. I was like, "What?" Like, this is so unlike my dad, like, paying for personal training when I already go to a gym and can do it myself. But I think he recognized I was at the point where I needed someone to, like, kinda take me to that next level, and we sat down with you, and I was like, "Okay, this guy's legit, like, he knows his stuff. He's not just, like, impressed by someone showing up and wanting to do it." And then I remember we could do, like, various number of different sessions, and, like, I wasn't the decision maker because I wasn't paying for it, and my dad was like he chose the max number of sessions, and I was like, "The hell?" And he when we left, he was like, "You're gonna do all of those," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm not gonna waste any of them." But it was far away and, like, horrible traffic on 66, and I was still in school. And I would come at, like, 9 p.m., and I'm like, "What am I
Yeah,
doing?"
yeah.
And, like, my friends are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like,
You used
"Gotta
to
go to
come
bed."
after your tennis practices and matches.
Yeah, in those stupid skirts in, like, all white, and I
Yep.
probably, like, got absolutely smoked by some girl who was going to play tennis in college, and I was just there for a good time, but, yeah, I would come into that small facility, and I learned my weaknesses physically and mentally so quick. So fast. And I kind of knew at that point, like, I hadn't really been not that I hadn't been humbled, but, like, I hadn't had that degree of, like, individual one-on-one coaching and a space where it was, like, okay to address your weaknesses. Like, I wasn't in competition with anyone but myself for the first time. And, like, when you're with teammates, like, yes, it's super important to recognize, like, your strengths and your weaknesses, but, like, when you're competing against other people, you don't wanna let everyone know.
Right.
So, when it's just you at 9 p.m. in a facility, with one
You ain't
coach,
got nowhere to hide.
you're yeah, there is nowhere to hide, and I was, like, doing these simple moves, like the monster walks and stuff, shaking like a chihuahua, and I was like, "What have I gotten myself into?" But I'll never forget, I was at a freedom practice that summer, and my friend Anna Smrelli, who now coaches at Davidson, she goes, "I want whatever workout plan you're on, girl. I can see all your quad muscles." Let's go. But, yeah, my first impressions was like, "This is gonna be a lot, but, like, this is gonna be something that actually makes a change," which is what I wanted and needed, and I was I was intimidated, but I knew, like, it needed to be done if I wanted to. But my dad sat me down before. Sorry, I'm, like, rambling here, but I remember my dad after dinner one night was like, "We're going on a walk," and I was like, "What the hell? Like, can we just go get ice cream? Like, why are we going on a walk? Like a dad-daughter." I thought I was, like, in trouble. I was like, "Oh, did he find out that I, like, went to this party?" Like, whatever. Terrified. And he just kinda sat me down and was like, "You know, if we're doing this thing, like, you gotta really do it." Like, this was before, like, I really got consistently going, with my sessions, and he was like, "I don't expect anything of you. Like, I don't if you don't wanna play in college, you don't have to play in college. Like, you can do whatever, like, 0 external pressure there, but if you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it right." And I was like, "Of course I wanna play in college. Of course I wanna do this." And he was like, "Well, then you need to step it up." And I was like, "Okay." He was like, "You can't just cruise because you're not the kid who's a freak of an athlete." And he was like, "You have it in you, but, like, you have to decide if you're gonna apply yourself." And I was like, "Damn." That hurt. I'm literally on my
I wish you probably sitting there
elementary
saying,
school
"I wish I got
playground
in
as he's
trouble."
saying this.
Jesus.
Yeah, I was like, "Darn, Dad, by the way, did you know I went to this party I wasn't supposed to go to?" No, I was sitting on the playground in my elementary school, and it was like sun was setting, it was summer, I thought we were chilling. We were not chilling, he was not chilling. But it was it came from a supportive place because he was never that parent that sat me down and was, like, berating me in the car. He would ask one question, "How did you feel you played as a team, and how did you feel that you played individually?" And then he would, like, use that to gauge if I wanted to talk and if I didn't want to talk. The only time I ever got feedback from him was if I was sassy to a ref, which is really ironic because now he's a ref.
Yeah.
But that was the only time he got mad at me. But I think he knew that you were like legit and could take things to the next level. And he was like, I'm not going to waste this man's time. I'm not going to waste my money. And you're not going to go through the motions driving like an hour each way. Like, that's just stupid. Let's save everyone's time, effort, and energy. So that was the beginning of it all. Wow, I literally have such a vivid memory of that.
That's too funny. So, what do you think pushed you with the training mentally, not just the physical part? What about the training pushed you mentally, do you think?
I think lifting weights, specifically, like really like touching a barbell for the first time, it translates really well because it's daunting for sure. And but it's also like it's gonna reward you for putting the work in. Like you're not going to plateau with the right coaching resources. And just to look at like numbers you put up and not even just numbers, but like feeling stronger is what made me realize like, oh, I can do things on the field that I can't do right now. Like I will be able to get there. And just like having that process that rewards the work was comforting because like strength training is like breaking down your muscles to come back stronger. So anytime I was like mentally breaking down, I was like, it's okay, you're gonna come back stronger.
Yeah.
Like and that's the mindset that I had. And then just like there's gonna be days where like your body just and you are not on the same page, whether it's because you're underfueled or just tired. And like knowing like I still have to show up and I have to do these exercises. It might not be at the same weight, but like I need to give 100% of what I have to give that day. And like it just humbles you really quick, but rewards you at the same time.
Yeah, I tell my kids all the time, especially with female athletes, getting them in a weight room builds their confidence and everything else in life so quick because you're learning how to do things that in your mind you thought you would never do. And then once you achieve that, now you're like, oh, I didn't think I could do that. I could do that now because I know I did this over here. And it just builds confidence quick and fast, like I've
Just
never
like
seen before.
yeah, and just weight room literacy, like knowing what things are. No one's gonna slow things down for you in college. So if you're able to just like jump right into it, that's another thing that makes you feel more comfortable. And like strength coaches talk to your head coaches. And like there'll be lists of things. And like if the 5'3" freshman who maybe weighs 115 pounds soaking wet is putting up numbers close to like the not so small teammates, they're like, something here. And it just helps. And also, like, you don't wanna get knocked off the ball. Like, girls are bigger in college.
Yeah. Bigger, stronger, faster. Yep. Um,
And yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
and just, like, control what you can control is, like, something that I just repeatedly learned through strength training.
So that's a good segue to my next question. Training that you still carry with you today, whether it's with your coaching, your field hockey teams, whether it's your schooling as a lawyer or in just life in general. What's something you've taken from the training that you did with me that you still carry to this day?
There's nothing that comes anywhere close to this as being, like, the thing that across the board for everything, like, will beats skill when skill doesn't have the will. And, like, putting in the work just, takes you so far. Like, whether it's like, putting in the preparation, like so a weird translation that I've seen it is in law school. Like, I have had the opportunity to work on, like, quite a few trials as a student where I'm, like, standing in court and speaking, and I just know that if I become so intimately familiar with the facts and then, like, research all the applicable law, and I'm the most possible prepared person in the room, things are gonna go well. And I'm going against these, like, 80-year-old men who, like, call me sweetie and, like, ask how old I am or, like, if I need help, and I'm like, "You can have that idea of me, but, like, I put hours and hours and hours into prepping for this, and you probably looked over me." And then they lose, and it just is the best feeling ever.
There you go.
So put in the work, show up ready, and good things happen.
Be
You
con-
might not win every time, but good things happen.
and be consistent.
Consistency.
All right.
It
Well, thank you
works.
for your time. This was part one. We'll
Of
circle back
course.
around and do a part two because
Yes,
there's
we'll be
some
back.
questions that I do need to follow back on with you.
Of course.
Thank you.
But I look forward to chatting more.
Cool. You're gonna help a lot of people with this.
That
Trust me.
Yay! That's all I care about.
All righty.
'Cause I wish I had someone to tell me all these things.
All
All right.
righty.
Bye.
Have a good one. There you have it. A really, really quick, short interview with one of my favorite athletes that I've trained. Had the lovely privilege, as you heard, I trained her for 8 years. Who was a very successful field hockey player at UMass. Now she's very successful going through law school, trying to become a lawyer, doing some great things. Um, Look forward to having a part two with her because she has a lot of knowledge and has a lot of information that if you're a field hockey player, you could take some of her experiences and apply it to your life. And hopefully it could help you with that. Again, thank you for joining with this particular podcast. This is going to be a series of interviews I'm going to be doing with a bunch of my former athletes that I've trained, help them physically as well as mentally, which is what my program is all about. And I think you as field hockey players, parents also, there's a lot of insight that these young ladies can give. There's a lot of successful things that they've accomplished. Maybe because of me, maybe not necessarily because of me, but they've accomplished some great things and they continue to accomplish great things, even though their athletic career is over. But there's lessons to be learned for all of us when we're trying to achieve big things and we're trying to do things that we go after pretty aggressively about when we have dreams that we want to reach. Okay, thank you for this particular episode of Let's Talk About a Podcast, and I'll see you next time.